So it actually took me a year and 6 months to read this book, and I have my reasons for it. Although they are not actually like something I would say a genuine reason or are very important. But when I was 16 years old, one of my friends was about entering university, and given the fact that I love reading books a lot, he decided that instead of me just focusing on reading this fictional romance novel, that I should just instead read all these how to make money online books and educational book instead. So he recommended that I should read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and I did, but it took me a year and 6 months to read it. And my reasons for it is because my reasons for reading the book is because I didn't manage my time. I didn't actually have anywhere or any direction of where I wanted to go. I still went back into reading the fictional novels, but I didn't put my mind into reading any educational novel for the meantime. So I read the book, the first page and the second page. I read it for like I think a month, and while I was reading this book, I wasn't actually putting my all in it. I was just having this mindset that I should just read this book so I can finish it up, because he promised me that once I finish up the novel, he's going to recommend another one for me to read. And I read the book like a month, and the first two chapters for like a month. I went back into just doing whatever I like reading other fictional novel, watching movies. I didn't actually put my mind into reading this book. And then after a few months, I read the book again, but I had to start afresh from the very start because I really didn't remember anything I read from the previous chapter. And that kept happening till like 6 months gone. I keep reading that book again. But then when I was 17 years old and I found out that okay, this book I actually used my money to like purchase this book he recommended. It's actually not fair to me not to read this book. And yet I went back, I picked up the book when I was 17 years old and I read it. And when I read it, I can really recommend that this book is actually a good book, because I have seen most people online, especially here on YouTube, that they say what actually changed their mindset is this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And it's really a great book. I recommend you read it and you put your all into this book, because it's actually the first step for me to change my mindset. From my 17 years to now that I'm 18, I've actually read like more than 15 books, and I'm really proud to say that the knowledge I've gained from them is good. I'm telling you, the 15 books are all, they are not fictional novels, they are not romance novels, they are all educational novels. Like one of my favorite book I recommend also is The Richest Man of Babylon, and I also recommend The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. The book I'm currently reading is The Courage of Being Disliked, and I love that book. I heard from this man on YouTube, I can't really remember his name. He said instead of piling up books to read, and just because you want to finish them up, why don't you just read the book that is actually the place you are in life? And the time I read The Richest Man in Babylon, it was like actually the place I was in life, and it's matched. The time I read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, it was actually the time I really need to read that book. And now the time I'm reading this, The Courage of Being Disliked, is where I am in life, and I can really say his advice was really good. And reading books have really changed me a lot, because I've grown from it and I have learned a lot of lessons from it. It's really where I want to do. I find reading books like good than staying and watching movies. So whenever I stay and watch movies, because I don't actually play games, I just feel like the time is passing by and it's actually for waste. But whenever I put my all and I read a novel, I feel like I've gained 10 times more what other people have actually gained during their period of time, because some people are like 40s and there are some 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old that know more than those 40 years old. And I've really gained those experience from reading novel, because the lesson you will learn from life, you don't have to just sit down and, yes, experience is actually the best teacher, but you don't actually have to sit down and experience it. You can actually learn from, you can actually learn from other people's mistakes, which they have written in books, which they'll tell you through their word of mouth. And reading books have actually been good because I've really learned a lot of lessons, and it is changing my mindset. So the first thing, or the first book that actually changed my mindset, was the Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I'm really proud and I'm really happy I did read that book, even though it actually took me a year and 6 months. Sometimes I just sit back and I tell myself that, imagine I actually read this book when I was 16 years old. The period, or the knowledge I have from 17 to 18, I would have had it from 16 to 17, and I'll be in a like different time frame this 18 years old. So I'm happy I still pick up that book to read. And within this 17 to 18 years old, I've read more than 15 books, and I'm proud I did so. And thank you for the guy who recommended Robert Kiyosaki's book to me. Cheers.